Hi, this is Gary Auden. I'm bringing you an EduCast, Unified Communications as a Service as easy as Facebook, sponsored by RingByName and Telecom Reseller. With me today is Matt Bramson, Chief Strategy Officer at RingByName. And as we always do, let's talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what UCaaS is in this environment, but we're going to focus as much on the users and the challenges and why you really want to make UCaaS as easy as Facebook. There are two audiences for UCaaS, the internal group and the external caller. We're going to differentiate between the two. You also need to think about adopting business intelligence to understand what people are doing with your UCaaS product or service. Because what you do with this impacts your business image, and that's very important, and it's very hard to rebuild a poor image. Then we'll talk about what makes the difference among these various systems. But let's start off, Matt, with your definition of unified communications as a service.
Sure, thanks, Gary. Unified communication has become a fairly broad term, and it's used differently by different service providers and analysts. To me, it comes down to two things. One is a tool that helps you aggregate all your communications channels, and secondly, that it makes those communications channels greater than the sum of their parts, or maybe less than some of their parts if you're talking about less complexity.
Now, what you're talking about is the word challenges. And to me, you just don't plug this in and say, okay, everybody, here it is. Isn't that correct?
That's right. That's right. I mean, the service has come a long way from some of the early days when the first VoIP implementations, but we find that the keys are, number one, to make sure that your service model and the expectations of your customer match. If the customer is expecting on-site installation, on-site training, somebody to come out and replace broken devices, and that's not the model that you offer, then you need to address that, right up front. Ideally in the sales process, but if it doesn't get addressed at that point, it needs to be addressed, right as you start to deliver the service. Secondly, we find that onboarding the employees, particularly the employees that are going to administer the service, is critical. And very often the person that administers the service is not the person that bought it. So they may not be familiar with all the capabilities. They may not even be that excited about it, because it represents a change for them. And so you got to make sure that that person is brought up to speed as quickly and completely as possible.
Now, one of the things that I've gathered in looking at UCaaS and how it's offered is people assume the user is going to accept this. But user acceptance seems to be one of the bigger problems we have in getting this working, because there's a lot of features and people just ignore them.
That's right. That's right. There are a lot of options out there. And what a lot of service providers don't pay as much attention to as perhaps they should is the fact that your UCaaS solution is competing against a host of tools, and a lot of them are working quite well for the users, and they may still decide to go over the top or around the sides of your solution unless you do a good job of getting them to accept and use what you're offering. So we find that it's very important that people be able to get up and running with the basics, making and receiving calls, having some basic call control, very quickly without any kind of help or any sort of training. Just very intuitive ability to get up and running. And then once that's accomplished, making sure that support is available using whatever channel of communication that user prefers. So some people like to talk with others on the phone, some people like to go and read or watch videos, some people like to do text chatting or email. In our experience, you need to support all those, because otherwise it's going to be a mismatch between what that user needs to get to that acceptance point and what you're offering them.
One of the problems I find with some of the services and technologies out there is people keep saying, well, it's dial tone with features. And they assume that if you build it, people will come, sort of giving people a connection and say, okay, here it is. But that doesn't seem to be adequate to really make use of UCaaS.
No. I mean, what's happened with the explosion of the software side of UCaaS, beyond just the telecom switching calls and streaming media and all that, is that your UCaaS service really can be and should be a competitive weapon. It should help you, your business, succeed more and better than it does today. And one of the most important elements of that we found is to focus on the caller. The caller is the most important user of your phone service and often the neglected one. And so you need to make sure that the experience that the caller has when they call a business is as fast and easy and welcoming and reassuring as possible.
But also on your list here, you mentioned mobile and call routing. Aren't these important features too?
Absolutely. UCaaS, one of the main benefits that brings businesses to a UCaaS service is the opportunity to be more productive and more reachable outside the office, be able to route calls in more sophisticated ways than their phone system that they were previously using.
We have chosen to put the word Facebook in the title of this Educast. Why do you do it this way? Why do you compare yourself to Facebook?
Facebook has obviously had a transformational impact on the world, and it's done it in a very short period of time. And one of the keys to it has been that it's a very simple and intuitive application. There's no training. There are no videos on how to use Facebook that I'm aware of. There's no customer service department. Another key is that your use of Facebook is incremental and voluntary. So if you want to just post text, you can do that. If you want to add pictures or videos or start to create events or get even more sophisticated with live streaming and things like that, that's available to you too. A lot of phone services impose a whole kind of chunk of learning on users. Many cases there's a certification program or a training session they have to go through, and until they do that, they're going to have a very hard time. And that's just not the model that most people are looking for. Most people are looking for a Facebook type of model where I can quickly and easily get up and running and use it the way I want to.
Looking at Facebook, I can remove the word intimidation so that the callers, whether internal, external, I'll look at it and say, oh, this is easy to use. So let's talk about those internal users first and then talk about the external users. What's important about making it as easy as Facebook for the internal user?
A couple of things that internal users focus on is improving their collaboration and their reachability. Like I said before, there are a lot of tools that are competing for your communication needs, and if your UCaaS service is going to be successful, it's going to need to improve upon those. A couple of specific things that it's going to need is it's going to need to let everybody in the business know whether each other is available. Have some kind of visibility into presence. It's also very important that they be able to see activity across their organization or across their department. Those are the kind of capabilities that some of these consumer-grade services are not generally offering, and are needed and add value in the workplace.
Well, let's move to the next group, the external users, because to me, how someone calls into your office is calling into an image.
Businesses are focused on winning more, winning more customers, keeping more customers, and a key part of winning customers is impressing them, making a good impression, making them feel comfortable that the company that they've called into is the sort of organization that they would be wise to trust and seek a relationship with. Specifically, what our RingByName product does is it welcomes callers by name. That's where the name comes from, RingByName. And it remembers who they spoke with the last time they called, so they can avoid menus and they have a more welcoming experience. They're not treated the same whether they've called for the first time or called for the 100th time. And most phone systems don't do that. Most phone systems treat every single caller the same.
One of the words I see around a lot today is analytics related to the word business intelligence. And it seemed to me that knowing what your external and internal users are working with in the UCaaS system becomes real important to figure out what's relevant and what's not. Have you ever had a feature you put out there and found it wasn't accepted as you expected?
Yeah, we have had that experience. We actually, early on, when we first developed RingByName, we put a tremendous amount of focus on our user interfaces, both on browsers as well as on mobile devices, iOS and Android devices. What we found when we got our first couple thousand users on the platform is that the folks that our salespeople had sold the service to weren't using these tools. Many of them had never logged on to our interfaces at all. They were just using the phone the way people have for about 100 years. They were just picking it up and making calls using the handset. And that surprised us, and we had a decision to make. Are we going to continue to build a system that serves users that we believe are out there, or are we going to pivot and focus on the types of customers that our sales reps are bringing us? And it was a difficult choice, but we chose to go in the more aspirational direction and adjust our marketing and sales efforts to sell those more sophisticated features. And it's worked out really well for us. But it is important to, one of the things we learned is some of these people weren't using these interfaces and features because they weren't aware of them and they hadn't been properly onboarded to them. And so it was a user adoption problem.
Now the next page talks about system connections, and why is this list so important here? Do I need all of this as part of or connected to my telephone system?
We think you do, yeah. We when we whiteboarded out RingByName, when we were first deciding that we wanted to build a solution for small to medium-sized businesses, we quickly came to the conclusion that a phone system with its traditional definition wasn't really what was needed in the current marketplace. And so RingByName is at its core a CRM, and everything connects and runs through that CRM. So that obviously is part of our ability to welcome by name and to route people by who they spoke with last time. But we also tie into the CRM call recording. So call recordings can be categorized by by contact. We can allow users within the organization to create and share notes and tasks, and it all has to work together. The somewhat unrealized potential of the cloud is not that I have my stuff in the cloud, I don't have any equipment on premise. I mean, that's nice to have, but the real exciting possibility is when all that stuff in the cloud works together and talks together. And that's what RingByName is focused on, is delivering that whole is greater than the sum of its parts type of value to businesses.
I'm sure you get this argument that we have on the next slide. I have a phone system, so what are you doing for me?
Yeah, every single day. A generation of customers and salespeople have been taught to buy and sell telecom service wrong, to take the phone bill and propose like service for a lower price. Well, on the one hand, that approach has kind of run its course, but on the other hand, your phone service can and should be a competitive weapon. It should be helping you win more customers than you're currently winning with the phone system you use today. It should be helping you retain more customers. And if it does that, if it just retains one more customer or just helps you win one more customer a month, in many cases, its value just from that one customer exceeds your entire monthly phone bill. And so we're trying to encourage our customers and prospects to think about that competitive weapon angle. And if they evaluate RingByName versus whatever they're using today with respect to which one's a stronger competitive weapon, it's no choice. And the decision to make a move to get something that's going to help you win more is fairly easy.
That gets into the question of how does this all improve my business? Because you talk about competitive weapon, but the idea is I want more business.
First off, RingByName replaces whatever you have today. It replaces the phone lines you have into your business. It replaces the phone system you have into your business. And potentially, it even replaces the phones themselves on everybody's desks. But more than that, it's bringing a complete business tool into your business that, as I said before, has built-in CRM. It has interfaces that you can use in the office and out in the world. It's giving you a tool that helps you impress more customers, helps you reassure more customers. It transforms in a positive way the perception that your business projects through the phone.
Most people in this audience don't know Ring by Name, so what are you?
Well, we're a service provider. We provide a complete solution for businesses to replace their phone system and their phone service. So they port their existing numbers into us if they want to do that, or we can provide them with new phone numbers virtually anywhere in the world. That cloud-based phone system connects into their office and their IP phones or their smartphones, and allows them to make and receive phone calls to anyone, anywhere. Plus, we've built plugins to a host of leading business and social applications. So, data that you might have in your existing CRM or in other places can be used and be synced and be valuable to you when you're on the phone.
Would you give us some background about Ring by Name, how big you are, where you are?
Sure. We're an 8-year-old company. We've got about 50 employees. Our platform is actually currently serving about 50,000 businesses and nearly 250,000 consumers. As I said before, we've got the ability to service customers all over the world. We can port numbers in about 15 countries. And our platform is extremely reliable. We actually guarantee 100% reliability, and we haven't had to make financially good on that guarantee for several years because our platform is so well designed and built to be highly redundant.
But we need a diagram. Doesn't everybody need a diagram for a telephone service?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a telecom presentation without the diagram. So this is checks that box. This diagram is not particularly earth-shattering for those that have seen cloud-based phone services diagram before. The main takeaway here is that in the cloud we have the databases and the applications that your business needs, and through the internet, over the top of your existing internet service, we can provide connections to people working a host of different ways. Mobile workers on soft phones, people using IP phones at home or in the office, people using smartphones. We can connect into offices all over the country. Just a tremendous amount of flexibility as far as tools that we give you and where and how you can use them.
Would you continue that overview for us?
Yeah, the way we break up Ring by Name is that there are three main components. We've got the application that runs in the cloud, and then we've got a desktop interface that is generally what you're using at your desk when you're working from there and you're making and receiving calls there. And then there's a mobile interface that's available on Android or iOS devices, and that they're all designed to work together and to give you more capabilities, more of a competitive weapon than you have with whatever you're using now.
Let's talk about that desktop, and you have a long list here. What points do you think are real important for people to take away from this page?
I would highlight our ability to identify the caller and to greet them by name, the ability to identify and display who the caller last spoke with and even offer to route the caller to that person automatically, ability to show notes on the caller regardless of who they spoke with last, and to display all this information in real-time screen pops so that there's no need to retrieve it, there's no need to hem and haw while you're waiting to look up the customer. You know as the phone is ringing who you're about to talk to, and you have a good idea of what they're calling about and who they've spoken with previously.
Now, when I've used mobile applications, I find many times they're limited in what they do. Have you delivered everything you do on the desktop to the mobile device?
Yes, we had a long discussion, and to some extent it still goes on as we add more things, as to whether the mobile app should be a summarized set of capabilities versus our desktop app, or whether it should have everything. And the more we talked about it, the more we realized that there were users that were going to miss certain things if we took them out. And so we think fairly artfully, made it so that everything you can do on the desktop you can do on the mobile phone, and that includes administer the system. So an administrator can go into the administrative view and can set up departments, can change greeting messages, can change routing, can turn on or off users, and there's absolutely no no limitation to what you can do on your mobile device.
But you also mentioned that you handle things other than desktops and other than the mobile device. You handle standard phones as well.
Yes. A lot of people still want a good old-fashioned business phone on their desk, or a speakerphone in their conference room. We support all standard SIP SIP standard devices. There are a couple brands you can buy from us, or you can buy phones from virtually anybody else, and as long as they're SIP compliant, we can connect to them. The devices that you get from us all go out pre-configured, and they're ready to be plugged in and register to our network and to the user's account.
Now the next slide says core features, and this is a long list. Do you have anything in particular you want people to remember?
Yeah, there's a few things here I think that are pretty important. It goes back to the idea of a competitive weapon. One is this idea of making your business look and sound to first-time callers that are prospects, or frequent callers that are existing customers. Make it look and sound even better than some of the biggest companies in the world. A lot of our customers are small to medium-sized businesses, and they're competing against companies that are very sophisticated, technologically very large, and we give them an edge. One of the ways we do that is we can allow them to prioritize their inbound calls so that their most important customers get treated differently by the phone system. They get routed differently, they get sent to a different group of people, or they hear different messages. We think it's really key that the phone system remembers who you last spoke with. That's probably the most remarked upon feature of our system, is you call up and it says, hi Matt, thanks for calling XYZ Hardware. Last time you spoke with Gary. Would you like to talk to him again? That simple feature blows people away, because it does something I think that really powerful. It's sort of like that, gets you over that experience we've all had when you walk into a party and you see somebody you're supposed to know the name of, and the host just runs up and introduces you. It makes that experience that it was very comfortable, and that's, in a sense, that's what RingByName is doing. RingByName is reminding you who you spoke with, giving you their name, and sending you on to that person, so that and they have your name. So it's starting that interaction off on the right foot.
Let's talk about some of the resources. I've watched your video and I thought it was kind of cute, but also very instructional. There's several other places you can go for information. Those of you interested in buying the service can contact Ray. Those who are interested in selling the service can contact Raphael. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you, Gary.